All right, let's talk about a big new housing law here in California, Senate Bill 79. Now, it's about to take effect, and it was designed with a great goal in mind: build more housing and do it faster. But as cities are digging into the details, they're finding some really serious unintended consequences. So today, we're going to break down what's wrong and, more importantly, talk about the common sense fixes that could actually make this law work for everyone.
So, here's the big question, and it's a real head scratcher. How can a law that's supposed to help the housing crisis actually end up making homes less affordable and maybe even make our communities less safe? It sounds completely backwards, right? Well, that's the central problem people are raising, and it's exactly what we're going to unpack.
Okay, so what exactly is SB 79? Well, at its core, it's a state law that gives developers a green light to build much denser housing near major transit stops. And here's the kicker: it overrides the local zoning rules that communities have spent years carefully putting into place. Now, the idea itself is noble: get more homes built where people can use public transit. But the execution, well, that's where the problems really start.
So let's dive right into the problem. Despite all those good intentions, the law is just packed with what critics are calling major unintended consequences. It's kind of the classic case of a one-size-fits-all state mandate that just doesn't account for the unique needs and realities of all the different communities we have across California. To really get a picture of how huge this change is, check this out. This is based on modeling from Los Angeles. You take a typical single-family home on a normal lot. After SB 79, that same piece of land could become an 11-unit, 5-story apartment building. Yeah, right next door to existing homes. We're not talking about a small tweak here. This is fundamentally changing the character of entire neighborhoods, one lot at a time, without any kind of comprehensive local plan.
And this might be the most revealing number of all: 0. What is that? That's the number of affordable units required in any SB 79 project that has 10 units or less. It creates this massive loophole. So a developer is incentivized to just build 10 market-rate, high-end units, maximize their profit, and completely sidestep our desperate need for actual, affordable housing. So with all this new density, you're going to need new sewers, more water, upgraded power grids. Who pays for all that? Well, according to the LA city attorney, just in the city of Los Angeles, the unfunded infrastructure costs could easily top $1 billion. And SB 79 provides no funding for this. So guess who gets stuck with the bill? Yep, local taxpayers. And the problems don't stop there. I mean, the state required cities to spend years and millions of dollars creating these detailed local plans called housing elements. This law just undermines all that careful work. It also lacks adequate safety protections for building in very high fire hazard severity zones. And by turning single-family homes into hot commodities for developers, it forces regular families to compete with speculators, which just drives home prices up and pushes that dream of home ownership even further away. But look, this isn't just about listing problems. It's a call for collaboration. Community groups and city leaders are proposing some really clear, targeted amendments. Think of it as cleanup legislation to fix these critical flaws and turn SB 79 into a responsible policy that can actually work. All right, let's get into the solutions. The first proposed fix is all about fairness and simple logic. It's about protecting the cities that have already done the hard work the state asked them to do. This quote from a former mayor in Burbank really gets to the heart of it. You have to understand, cities across California went through this incredibly rigorous, multi-year process to create their housing elements. These plans were then certified by the state itself as 100% compliant. So these cities followed the rules. They created a detailed roadmap for growth. So the proposed fix is simple. If a city has a state-certified plan to meet its housing goals, it should be exempt from SB 79's mandates. This respects local planning, it protects taxpayer investment, and it lets communities meet their housing needs in a way that actually fits their town, rather than having a blunt state law undo years of careful work. Next up is a fix that tackles the bill's biggest contradiction: the fact that it fails to guarantee any meaningful amount of affordable housing. This table just illustrates the disconnect perfectly. On one side, you have SB 79, which for a typical 10-unit project requires 0 affordable units. 0. On the other side, you have the state's own goal for a city like Los Angeles under what's called the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. The state's own targets say that about 57% of new housing there should be affordable. SB 79 completely undermines that critical state goal.
The solution here is to simply connect the dots. This amendment would require any project built under SB 79 to match the specific affordability targets that the state has already set for that city. This closes that 10-unit loophole and ensures that new development actually helps solve the affordability crisis, instead of just producing more high-end housing.
And finally, we have to address the practical, on-the-ground impacts. You can't just add thousands of new residents to a neighborhood without making sure the infrastructure can support them and that public safety is maintained. This set of fixes gets right to those realities. First, allow cities to charge development impact fees so that new projects help pay for the infrastructure they require. Second, since cities need to do expensive studies to implement those fees, the state should provide funding to help with that. And third, a huge safety measure. Exempt areas already designated as very high fire hazard severity zones from SB 79. This is just a common sense protection for everyone.
So these proposed changes are not about stopping development. They're about making sure that as California grows, it does so smartly, safely, and fairly. It's a call to transform a flawed bill into responsible legislation that actually works for all Californians.
So to summarize, it all comes down to these three key asks. First, respect local planning by exempting the cities that are already in compliance. Second, close that affordability loophole by making projects follow the state's own RH&A goals. And third, fund the necessary infrastructure and protect public safety. These are the building blocks of a sound housing policy. Ultimately, this presents a clear choice for our state lawmakers. Will they work in partnership with local communities to achieve our shared housing goals, or will they just push forward with a flawed mandate that imposes massive financial, social, and safety costs on the very people they're supposed to serve? The path to a responsible housing policy is clear, and it begins with these common sense fixes.